Welcome to a special late Monday 20th of October 2025, parallel to the year of darkness 2029, where my parallel self designs build supercomputers, ICBM rockets, microchips, and satellites, and all things to do with technology and science. And right here, I just finished a more than 3-hour march, 3 hours and 16 minutes march. A little less than usual because it was raining a lot, lots of rain, stormy rain, lots of rain. So I did 2 hours yesterday. It's Sunday, which I don't usually do, and I worked out. So I'm gonna compensate tomorrow. Add 1 or 2 more hours to the usually October, November, December, January. Average about 20 plus hours a week of marching, about 4 hours a day. Already marched than any general of NATO today combined. It's about 8:44 p.m. EST came back around 8 o'clock, and about more than 44 minutes ago, and still raining in Hawk Island, Montreal. And I went to pay my phone bill. 4 bills paid. I paid it all. I put tight budget, and now I really have for the rest of the 11 days. I have to have a very tight budget, but I got everything I need, all things considered, and I got $44 to last me for the next 11 days. So 11 times 4, that's about average of $4 per day. So that's not bad actually, considering that I don't need much besides food and some wafers. I already got some wafers there. Gonna celebrate a little bit of victory and celebrating today, and not just my march of today, but celebrating 6 years. So I'm gonna start a series this week, and of course next week, but coming days, end of October. I'm celebrating 6 years since I created the workout training program system, officially titled the General Integrated Whole Body Training System, and since I predicted that there is going to be an international conflagration, and that's one of the important things which I want to discuss now. I'm just going to put some coffee here. I'm just going to make myself a coffee, and thank you for this little Jewel PC, a little filter, and I don't need a coffee machine. I've got this to keep the water hot. So I'm just gonna pour there and let it drip, No sugar, no milk. Just black dark coffee, but it actually has a rummy taste, tastes like rum. It's interesting that it was on special. First time, I never bought this before. This is actually from Ukraine, interestingly enough. It's a Ukrainian company, but here in the back it says that the country of origin of the coffee beans, it's Indian and Brazilian Arabica ground coffee. And what they did is they put Zabaglione rum, natural flavor. So they added to the coffee the rum Zabaglione, rum natural flavor. That's why it's called Cuba Libre, see? It smells really good, aromatic. It smells like rum. Has a very good taste, and they mixed in Ukraine, and I don't know where it is, in Komuna Street, urban type settlement, Valina Diamantica, Kiev region, in the Kiev region in Brovary district in Ukraine. There's even the phone number. I bought this from a special store here in Montreal, and it says the medium roast, grade high, and country of origin, both India and Brazil. So it's India, see? It's India and Brazil coffee. So the coffee is a mixture of Indian coffee and Brazilian coffee. So I guess they mixed, but it doesn't say the ratio type of estimation of proportion. It doesn't really say. So it could be 2/3, 1/3, 4/4, 4/5, 50%, 50-50. It could be 40, 60, 35, 65, 20, 80. It could be 10. I'm curious the ratio of the amount. I guess at the factory there, they would know. They would have more additional information. But this is an ASPE. Due to my neurological mental divergent condition, we're more concerned and meditative and questioning about certain details, because although it says that the country of origin is India and Brazil, this is 250 grams, right? See, it's 250 grams of coffee. So what is the ratio in reality? It could be that out of this 250 grams, it could be that 150 is from Brazil and 100 is from India, or vice versa. So because 250 grams If it's 50 grams from a country, that's 1/5, so that's 20%, because 50 grams is 1/5, which is the equivalent of 20%. I know this is more Aspie brains, that because I have HFA, high functioning autism, so I guess these are more weird dimensions of the Asperger Aspie brain being manifesting as I do these videos, and in all my hundreds of videos which you see of working out, training, and marching and rock and rolling. I love rock and roll. It's 24/7 geopolitics, sports and fitness, and rock and roll. And I'm gonna have a taste of this coffee here. I'm just gonna have a taste now. I'm gonna be grateful, thankful my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, paid my Netflix. I still haven't watched Umbrella Academy season 3 and season 4. Gotta tackle that over the weekend, because during the week I have my routines, my ritual like routines, and today I took like 5 hours just to do 2 loads of laundry because it's Monday, and still got some email work to do later after this cup of coffee, and eat and feast. And I did more than 3 hours of 16 minutes marching, and I guess for today I already marched today in the rain more than any general of Canada. Got that Canada tatted up, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, always for the 63. I'm also a mystic. I believe in reincarnations, and I was born many past lives, previous incarnations across many countries, many times, and 3 times in the USA post 7076. Once I was born as a woman, though, in the United States, twice as a man, served in the same United States Armed Forces. And if you're into mystic spiritual beliefs, I recommend you read George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. One of my favorite poems is George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly, where he discusses his belief in reincarnations. And of course I do believe in reincarnations, and with me sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, man, a woman, woman, a man, man, a woman, a woman, a man, a man, a woman. That's why today you get that 50-50, get that 50-50. I am androgynous, pansexual, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, and thinker, and strategist. I develop strategies mostly for the NORAD Collective and the North American Collective, and my uncle Connie and granddaddy Trump should have me as a consultant in geopolitics, because you have experts that might know economics, experts in finance, experts in tech and high gadgetry and technology and computer science and bureaucracy and other things. But when it comes to geopolitics, that is kind of it is my domain, my kingdom, my realm. As an Aspie, we have special interests, and we dedicate most of our time, daily routines and ritual involved with studying, learning, or actually on the creative side. Of course, it takes intellect and wisdom and capacity for understanding the dynamics, which involves, of course, statistics and history and culture and a lot of things of that nature when we are involved in geopolitical studies and analysis and theorizing and speculating future events and discussing, mentioning speculation of future events. In 2019, I have actually predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I'm just gonna sip a coffee right now. Really strong. This is really. I made it strong, but I have to add some more water. Yeah, we're gonna have to add some more water to that a little bit. It's a bit too strong for my taste now. What we're gonna do is just gonna dilute it with a little bit of Vasa. It's gonna be better. So it's a video celebrating 6 years since I predicted right in this room off Sun Temple here, and I really moved here with nothing. Of course, I have my high school diploma. I did graduate high school, unfortunately, for many Aspies, people with HFA, high functioning autistic like myself, neurodivergence is a very high dropout rate. The dropout rate is very high, and we certainly have our challenges. And myself, I've had many sufferings and strugglings and challenges, as of course still today, and always open for business. And I don't want to waste nobody's time. Don't waste mine. It's friends with benefits only. Pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. That's how I'm gonna rock and roll it. Or pledge your allegiance, support my dream. The dream for the North American Collective, the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom. When I say my dream is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership across the North American Collective, a mass PPP, public-private partnership, to implement my Trinity of theories, the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, Detrol Fusion Theory, the DFT, Democratic Fusion Theory, and Trinity of theories to be implemented via the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension is LOVE, 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 love. And that's how we gotta rock and roll it, Always rock and roll for the farmers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the grocery store clerks. Thank you to the store clerk earlier. Hope you get a raise. And I paid my bill. Very nice customer service. And their growing cost of living is quite a stress. My stress now, my only stress really is now, is really financial, economic, financial, and commercial, monetary, money. And paradoxically, I have the solution, the DRT, Detrol Fusion Theory, for the creation of the UE thereof. I'm gonna discuss it in a bit. I just want to say again that today is really on the 20th of October, and for the next days until the end of October and early November, I'm going to be celebrating, marking 6 years since I predicted what's happening now, generally overall and I have the proof because I have the videos where I discuss this coming international conflagration, on the horizon. I always stated that back then I sounded the alarm that I saw the trends by a deep intellectual analysis of the trends in geopolitical trends, and there's three things that never sleep. The expression "money never sleeps," right? Money never sleeps. Sometimes now people are buying and selling, and overnight and midnight and 1 o'clock, 1:44, 1:56, 3:33, 3 o'clock, 3:58, 4:18 in the morning EST here in Montreal, Hawk Island, at the same time zone as Washington D.C. as New York. There's gonna be some trading of currency, maybe forex. Forex is money never sleeps. Forex is always going on, and there's always money never sleeps, right? And along with money, which never sleeps, is also geopolitics also never sleeps, because now is past sunset here in Montreal, Canada, but in Asia, of course, now they have a sunrise now. In Japan, in Korea, North and South, and in China, and Australia and India, they're Tuesday morning now. It's their sunrise. Now the sun is rising there, the morning there. Tuesday morning is beginning in Asia, that part of Asia, most of that part of Asia. So they have the political dynamics, they have their conferences, they have their meetings, they have their elections, they have their riots, they have their unrest, they have their problems. And there's many growing problems, of course. And at the micro level, at the macro level, at the interaction between organizations such as Asian, Organization of Asian Economic Organization known as ASEAN, and the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the BRICS. Of course, BRICS is beyond Asia, of course. It includes Brazil and Russia and South Africa, and it expanded. And the SCO as well, they expanded parallel to counterpoise NATO, of course, of which Sweden was the last one to join. And most of my theories, philosophies, they're strictly for security, service, and defense, and it's important that you pay attention to my ideas, theories, and protocols, and not so much focus on the fact that I am androgynous, pansexual, that I've been in the open for as long as I can remember, because more than 11 years, of course, as part of the LGBTQ community, but I guess that's just part of a component. But when I discuss my theories and philosophies, and such as the DMAA, direct military assistance and action, it's super important that you focus on the wisdom and the understanding of it, protrudingly, not in an intellectual manner, in a scholarly manner, academic manner, of course, as it relates to geopolitics. Of course, if you have no interest in geopolitics, you can just check out my workouts and support my dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom, because we're gonna dance a lot. Dancing is my favorite sport. I love to dance. I got that always God bless goddess kiss our coming of our empire. And I always say GODDSS, so many things I don't know spiritually. I goddess it when I got a goddess, and God and God and goddess, always God bless. And goddess kiss our coming of our empire. Got those trillions of kisses, 718 trillions of kisses created from the forgotten goddess, and along with those trillions of kisses, I got trillions of marching steps with it, so we always gotta rock and roll. And in the past years, I've been pretty joyous, and I survived COVID right here I'm going to be marking 6 years in February, March 2026. So in a few months, I'm going to be marking 6 years since that event, as well as I'm marking 6 years now since the first days, the beginning of the World War III scenario, which is ongoing, and I might finalize the chapter, I guess, when we move on year seventh year. Well, we're marking 6 because I started it. Actually, the first video of my first workout in consequence was October 17, 2019. October 17 to be precise. I posted the first video, and then consequently in the coming days and weeks and months and years, I've discussed it and continued it. And of course, I predicted a World War III scenario, an international conflagration, a great war, whatever terms we want to use, I guess. Some historians and geopolitical theoretical analysts and just object to saying World War III because in reality there were many world wars, even in ancient times with ancient empires and different nations and states which formed coalitions. So, for example, such as the Peloponnesian War was another one that's by some historians considered to be a world war in many ways because they had different many nation states. So that is the consequence thereof of these wars which are ongoing now. So this fact and this reality which I predicted is unfolding in a general manner too, and in such a way as I have predicted it. Of course, not every detail by detail, but in a general manner. And in my videos, I always repeat and mention again one of my main premise, along with the other denominators and factors and motives and reasons, was that due to the fact that many nation states and civilizational complexes and regions did not fully resolve their conflicts from the 20th century, specifically from the Cold War period, which lasted almost 45 years. I placed the Cold War between March 1947 and end of December 1991. So that's almost 45 years. Some say 45, more than 45 years. I say around almost 45. I don't mind saying more. I don't object to historians and analysts and geopoliticians stating that the Cold War lasted 46 years. I don't object to 46. I don't object to more than 45. I say about or almost 45. Specifically 44 years and 9 months and some days. But some say it started in 1945, in 1946. I place the Cold War between March 1947 and end of December 1991. So almost 45 years. I do object to less than 45. Or less than 44 years and 9 months or so. But I don't mind expanding it to 45 and 46. However, if you say 50, then I'll object, because the Second World War ended in 1945, right? So if you go 50 years of the Cold War, then no. But if you go 46, yeah, we can say that it started in 45. However, I go by almost 45. And so one of the main factors, motives, reasons why I stated that there will be an international conflagration again, a World War III, a Great War, is because of these unresolved conflicts, whether ideological, political, social, cultural, sectarian as well, right? The empire, of course, is non-sectarian. Our Imperial Democratic Republic, let it rise and let it be established in our days, amen. God bless, God is kiss our empire, all citizens pledge allegiance, our family always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and the 63 here in the North American Collective, and then expanding it to all our allies and armies, and from North American Collective, but we're gonna fuse the true north, strong and free, right? With the land of the free and the home of the brave, we're gonna add some loving and some social justice by mass financing healthcare and mass rehabilitation of our infrastructure, via the DRT, debt fusion theory, and of course mass finance fitness as well, via mass public-private partnership, my dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom, the democratic imperial republic, of which is mass, fundamentally a mass public-private partnership fusion based on a new internal integrated democratic republican citizen sovereign for securing liberty and for total security, total service, total defense for the 21st century. That is basically my dream, which has as major parts theories, the Trinity of theories, the CIT citizen integration theory, the DRT debt fusion theory, and the DFT, the democratic fusion theory, and which need to be implemented for the creation of two mass complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the institutions, public-private partnership-based institutions, based on my philosophies and theories and dreams and loves, and the imperial SSD, Democratic Republican SSD allegiance for security, service, and defense, and insurance of liberty only. So the coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and the imperial integrated dance league, aka the Dancing Goddess Army, the Dragon Army. Official title, they have official title both have official titles, but Dancing Goddess Army and the Dragon Army, basically complementary covenant and cooperative institutions for the 21st century, which I'm calling the establishment and the creation thereof. So at this moment in time, and I'm marking, so this is part one, maybe of a 4-part lecture series, and of marking 6 years since I predicted an international conflagration of World War III. So, and again, there were much details, much intellectual, academic, and scholarly geopolitical analysis, but one of the fundamental aspects was that many nation states and countries did not resolve their conflicts. If you look, let's look at 4 different conflicts, open warfare or not, still conflicts or unresolved conflicts which exist. 4 major ones. Because, and again, I also have to make a statement that I also consequently created a workout training program system. You can see hundreds of videos of it, and I performed hundreds of videos right here in this room office in Temple, where I moved about 10 years ago. I came from a very moldy place, and I didn't even have a bathtub there, and I'm glad I have one now. I can take a bath, and I didn't even have a kitchen. The kitchen was in my room. The stovetop and where I do dishes was in my room. It was so small. I used to live here on the island of Montreal. I don't know how long I lived there. I have documents from like 2010 and 2011. So for at least 4 or 5 years I lived there, and I don't know if I was a junkie or if I was doing hard drugs or alcohol. And I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014, January, February, winter 2014. Sometimes memory comes back. I have a very good memory, but of the past 11 years, then before that is like a blackout, it's like a blackout. I have trouble with remembering my life prior to that. I have more information I had on many journals. I kept journal logs, and some of them got ruined because I spilled coffee or got food and got wet when I went to the mountain, and I had them on my backpack and got wet, and I had to throw some of them out. But I have a high school diploma. I dropped out of college. I went to college. I dropped out of college. I have a reference letters. I wanted to go to Kingston Military College. Kingston Military College. So I have very good reference letters. So that means that geopolitics was also part of my special interest, because as an ASP, and for many, many years I refused to. Since about 2015, 2016, I've been told and semi-officially diagnosed by several individuals and citizens, because I'm part of the half of neurodivergence, people who live with Asperger's, aka HFA, they one of the same. High functioning autism and Asperger's are basically one and the same neurological mental divergent condition. Not NOT, not an illness, not a disease. Please. I don't even use the word symptoms. I use characteristics and traits, which, yes, in certain things we're less able and we have certain disabilities, or we're less able, less capable, and our brain processes information differently. But thanks to my anonymous friend again for 2 books I have on autism generally. They have several chapters on Asperger's particularly because they merged, eh? Asperger's and high functioning autism, which is a lower level or different level, which requires less support than others, is the neurological mental divergent condition I live with, and sometimes social understandings and cues and can be more difficult, and the way we communicate and can be more strange, awkward, and bizarre. We might have these weird movements and tics, sort of. They're not really tics; they're more, like not only tics in the traditional sense. They might be perceived as such, but they're peculiar movements which can be repetitive, and we have these routines, and sometimes we repeat words and phrases, and also echolalia. It's a symptom characteristics and being concerned about weird, awkward details. For example, I've been doing this for years, and I remember for years and years, about 9 years ago, even 10 years ago, and say nine circa, I was always taking in the store, I was inspecting labels up close like this. So what we're doing is, sometimes there's little numbers and classification of numbers and little numbers on products, which you might not even notice. You might say, hey, like I discuss in my videos, you see that, for example, I pinpoint that there's 4 numbers. It could be 1984 or whatever the number might be. It could be 4 digits, 5 digits, whatever the case may be, right? And you might say, man, I've been buying this product for 25 years. I never noticed those little numbers there. So, and yeah, and my anonymous friend, thank you for renting a book from the library. It was a library loan 4 times. It's cool. I gotta recommend it to all. Neurodivergence and neurotypicals, with which we have to build bridges, because the vast majority of the population, are neurotypicals, and you're the 99% with which us neurodivergent aspies we have to build bridges with. And whether we build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra large bridges. So just like when you order a coffee, fries, or pizza, right? You might order a small coffee or fry or pizza, a medium-sized fry or coffee or pizza, or a large fry, coffee, or pizza, or an extra large fry, coffee, or pizza. So within those 4 categories, those are depending on what the bridges size of the bridges which we gotta construct and build together. It's reciprocity. It's a reciprocal building of those bridges affair between us, because I don't have antagonistic, hostile, resentful feelings vis-a-vis you, the vast majority of the population. And yes, indeed, I lost many jobs. The problem for one of the problems out of the 4 main problems we Aspies encounter are, we tend to get jobs but not keep them. It's a problem for us to keep them, maintain them long term, because of how we are, how our behavior sometimes, the way we communicate, things such as personal space. We might approach a certain individual to like 4 inches instead of the 4 yards. 4 yards, keep a long distance. It's like 4 inches. 4 inches, and things of that nature. The way we communicate, and we can be direct and straightforward sometimes, not because we mean or are intended to offend or to trigger or to harm in such a way, because we can be certainly sometimes straightforward and direct in certain things, which can seem abrasive also. So in the workspaces are mostly constructed, built for you, the 99% neurotypicals. Us, the instructions for Aspies and certain things, they have to be clear, precise, and be repeated. Be sure that it's properly understood and repeated, and then we have no problems really, or issues. But those dynamics of not understanding certain social circumstances and group think and hive mentalities and minds, and those interactions can be more difficult. And we might just go on and on and on and about our special interests. We have these special interests which for most Aspies preoccupy the whole many parts of the day we can be super intense, super focused, super concentrated, super engaged and dedicated when we're involved in those special interests, and they vary from individual. I'm an individual sovereign citizen with this neurodivergent known as Asperger's and high functioning autism is, and for hours sometimes I spend hours and hours and hours and hours a day just analyzing the speeches of the leaders, the diplomatic affairs, the conferences that are happening, because geopolitics never sleeps, right? Just like money never sleeps, forex is always on, the foreign exchange, right? Forex, foreign exchange, now is a less, because after the creation of the ECB, before it was more expansive, but it's still the biggest market in the world by a big shot. So the biggest market is actually not import export necessarily, but is currency transactions from US dollars. To the US dollar still dominates, but it's been challenged lately by the euro and the yuan as well. The yuan, but there were more currencies before the creation of the European Central Bank, right? Because you had the Deutsche Mark, you had the Italian lira, you had the francs, you had other currencies, the forint in Hungary, forint in Hungary, etc., 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 etc. So those dynamics, but forex never sleeps, right? There's always buying and selling. So money never sleeps, right? Because it's always a sun, and the sun never sleeps. The sun, my Publik king. There's always every second, every minute, every hour, minute, and second. There's somewhere in the world, the sun is setting, and the sun is rising because of the time zones. And there's always, because we have so many nation states, right, and so many different organizations with major ones, and then the intermediary ones, and then the lower ones, and then the more obscure ones, and diplomacy and pacts and agreements and conflicts are happening every hour, every minute, every second, every day. It's constant geopolitics. Right now, diplomats are meeting in Japan, Asia, Philippines, because it's sunrise there. It's morning, Tuesday morning in Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Burma. They're the same nation state. They're the same. But Burma and Myanmar and Burma, they're the same. Thailand, Malaysia, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, South and North Korea, Taiwan, ROC, New Zealand, Australia. There's always meetings, there's always politics, local and international, and geopolitics. But geopolitics is global. You know, when we study geopolitics, is not just regional. It can be segmented into regions, to nation states and particular organizations and countries, yes, but it's in the macro context, because when we say geopolitics, it comes from the Greek word geo for a location, and politics for from the polity, from the nation state, so the governance, the system of government and the organization of the governmental structure, right? Geopolitics, politics basically, and regions and geography. If I want to be less academic scholarly about it, it's the relation between geography and politics, and international relations is included trade, statistics, population, history, culture, religion as well, right? Because they can have an interplay on relations, all these factors. So I myself, an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist. My strategies are mainly strictly for security, service, and defense in the insurance of liberty in the North American collective civilizational complex. And this is my belief and theory that North America, Canada, United States, and even extending to Mexico, Jamaica, Haiti, and the islands of Barbados, the Jamaica, and the islands of Cuba as well. But Cuba is a paradox nonetheless, because they maintain their socialist communist system. Cuba is a paradox, but they're still part of the North American civilizational complex. And I'm drinking Cuba Libre, see? Coffee from Ukraine. From Ukraine. But country of origin, although we don't know the ratio, the beans come from Brazil and India. It's one of the best coffees that is rum. They put rum in it, but they didn't put the rum in it. They put the rum flavor. So it's pretty good. Actually, one of my favorites. When it comes to the, it's actually one of my top favorites when it comes that I drank in the past. I will say 11 years, because before my memories on the blackout. But that's a long time ago. January, February, winter 2014 is, let's say, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. We're going on more than 11 years and a half ago. So that's a long time ago. I remember I used to live in this moldy place, and I bet that if I go and retrieve the archives, because I remember I just loaned before COVID, I went often. I spent many years, and I could one foot in the streets, one foot in the libraries, and if I check, I believe that more than 90% of all the books from the libraries, especially the big library here in Quebec, the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales, the National Library, if I go and from like summer 2014 to summer 2019, for those 5 years, I'm sure that 90% of the books that I loaned and read are related somehow to geopolitics. And I've been on a fitness journey since 2017, 8 years ago. Before that, I was depressed and suicidal for a few years. This is another problem for many aspects like myself. Depression and suicide, I lived it. Was awful. Almost 3 years, like since like summer 2014 till about summer 2017, 2.5, 3 years. I crossed Canada coast to coast. That event made me have a revelation. That's why my projects and protocols for public-private partnership is to mass finance tourism across Canada, United States joint, as we're going to get rid of the border, fuse the RCMP and the FBI, and integrate, and of course implement the DRT for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, which as you see hundreds of videos discussing that theory. And of course my parallel paradox that about 3.5 years ago I foresaw also what's happening to the finances of both Canada and the United States, and the problem that is going to be because of the programs which COVID pushed us to support the population during the lockdowns, and the further deterioration of the employment and the economy thereafter, that we had to grow more deficits and grow more in debt. And even a few weeks ago, the PBO, Parliamentary Budget Officer here in Canada, had warned that Canada's done, basically. Words like stupefying, that we're done if we don't change. And I have proof, because I have the discussions thereof when I was asking, when Trudeau was in power here, now Uncle Connie's in power, and my fellow brothers and sisters of Canada, got it tied up. Supposedly I got this 22 years ago from the journal. I don't remember it, getting it. Sometimes memory comes back, Doesn't really matter. What matters is mostly my work and my hope and dreams. Live for today, every day. Ever since I died of COVID, right here, about between February and March 2020, almost 6 years ago. Also, it's gonna be in 4 months. It's gonna be 6 years, and I always say I live for today with hope for tomorrow. So I live for today with dreams and hopes for tomorrow. My dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, is fundamentally a complex which has to be implemented and integrated in the domains where we have now for the North American Collective, and that is my philosophies. And if you don't know what I'm referring about, that when I say the North American civilizational complex or the North American collective civilization, we constitute here an emergent civilizational complex which is not divorced. We're not divorced from Western civilization, but we're distinct. So double D. We're not divorced from Western civilization, but we are distinct. So that is one of the main general intellectual, philosophical realities of the North American Collective. That we are not divorced from Western civilization, but we are distinct. Because we're a new emergent civilizational complex, the North American Collective. In many ways, a new emergent civilizational complex, and which has its distinction, but it's a complex. That's why there are common denominators, but it's a complex, meaning it's different civilizational complex which is emergent. So maybe the 21st century will merge fully as a civilization, right? And my way to fuse Canada and United States best. No way, Granddaddy Trump, and I've been challenging Granddaddy Trump since 2018. And when it comes to geopolitics, Granddaddy Trump, you're not that good. You're not that good. My Uncle Connie, not that good. This following statement for both Canada and the United States, which I'm going to make of a geopolitical, and it's related to geopolitics and to international and domestic dynamics and to foreign affairs. You cannot say no to this following statement, and you cannot say maybe. This is like the pi symbol. The pi symbol is an N, the letter N for natural, Normandy, neurotypical, and neurodivergent, or neutral. Neutral, neurodivergent, Normandy, natural, Norman, Norma, N. It has two heads, or that's why our coming of Imperial Democratic Republic will have like two heads, two faces. One for benevolent goodness and kindness, the other one for more Dracula-esque, more punishment, more severity, more judgment. One for goodness and kindness and loving, the other one for more punishment. But the N has the letter, the pi symbol is the letter N. It's the same body. It's basically one, but with two heads, two faces. One seems to be more like a hawk, H-A-W-K, an eagle, a bird. One kind of looks similar to a dog, an aardvark, a donkey, an antelope, maybe even a hyena. Point is that the pi symbol is always a constant mathematically. It's always the number 3.14 as it relates to the relation between the diameter and the circumference of a circle, right? So thus, what I'm gonna say next, it's a constant. It's not a variable. At least it has been a constant for the past, since the dissolution of the British Empire, the losing of the power of the British Empire post Second World War. So after the Second World War, and you can check my 4-part lecture series. It was titled a few years ago. I started, I believe 4, 5, 6 years ago, maybe even 7. I started. It's called America Unwilling Empire. Unwilling. Because the United States was attacked on December 7th. Was attacked on December 7th by surprise, by an empire, by a real empire in that date, in 1941, December 7th, 1941, the United States was attacked by surprise by an empire. And it wasn't an empire, wasn't a superpower even back then. So one of my lectures was Unwilling Empire. America Unwilling Empire. It's a paradox, right? Because it was non-interventionist. United States. Before the December 7th attack. Surprise attack, just like I survived myself. Years and years and years ago, I gave myself a new deadline by October 31st to go retrieve the archives and the Jewish General Hospital. I'm somebody who doesn't like violence. I don't like violence at all. I can be intense, sporty, concentrated. I am hypervigilant. I am very hypervigilant, very extremely. I have plenty of scars on my body, but I don't like violence. I don't like violence at all. I survived myself a vicious surprise attack years and years and years and years ago, and was hit in the head. I don't know if there was something in the hand or not, but just pop, pop, pop. Was in the head, pop in the body, in the head, mostly in the head. Pop in the face, in the head, pop in the body. Fell, hit my head on the concrete, and the Montreal Metro was bloodied up, and here on the island was bloodied up, and had a dislocated right arm, shoulder. I went to the Jewish General Hospital. That's where I have to go retrieve my archives, and I was put on some meds, and I guess sometimes maybe I still get PTSD, I guess. Many have PTSD, but I'm functioning. It doesn't impede my health. And if you're black, you're white or black, man or woman, 18 plus for that one. Friends with benefits only. I have plenty of scars, but I can give and receive pleasure. I can use a massage therapy session. Anyways, I survived that surprise attack, I guess they try to take me out as well, and Israel also survived a vicious surprise attack on October 7th. I don't know what's happening with the ceasefire now. Before October 7th, 2023, I had before, because in a state of war, technically, a country, nation, states cannot really enter an organization for such as NATO. But before October 7th, 2023, if you check back in my lectures and discourses, I was advocating for Israel and Mexico at the same time, simultaneously, to join NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization member states, of which Canada were part of. And Article 5, which is the collective defense article, has only been invoked once in the 75 years history. NATO has been around since 1949, 75 years. Last year was celebrated, as Sweden is the last one to join. Last year, Sweden joined NATO, as NATO is planning expansion, right, to add further. But before October 7th, 2023, I made, I believe, a 4-part lecture series, or 3 or 4 parts, gotta double check, where I was having, it was titled Genesis 33, Protocol and Initiative, Genesis 33, something, Genesis and Initiative, Genesis 33 is related to the biblical story of the twins, which kind of made an alliance and a pact after many, many, many years. And they made an alliance, a deep military political alliance, just like NATO is a military political alliance. Is more military security defense based, collective defense, collective security, collective defense, as is defined in the geopolitical terms and international relations terms. It's North Atlantic Treaty Organization member states, of which we're part of Canada. NATO is a defensive security alliance. And so Article 5 was only invoked once, 9/11. 9/11 was the only one time that Article 5 was invoked. Supposedly I was in high school in physics class. I had it on a piece of paper. Well, actually in my journal when I wrote, and I was finishing high school. I studied 9/11, and the effects of 9/11 still, in international relations and geopolitics, still reverberate today. 9/11's still reverberates today. Things are ongoing in a political war on terrorism and geopolitically, and the changes, right, the internal in the United States. And like I said, Article 5 of NATO was only invoked that one time. So before October 7th, 2023, before the surprise attack by Hamas on Israel, and Israel declaring war and entering a state of war, Palestine, Hamas is an organization which was founded in 1987, so during the Cold War. So now, before I get back to that topic, I'm going to just parallel state that for Canada, United States, because I mentioned that just like the pi symbol, this is a constant for us. The reality that with this following statement, you cannot object to it. You cannot say no. You cannot say even maybe. You have to say yes, 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 yes. For us, Canada, and reciprocally for the United States, although my brothers and sisters in the United States, you have a border with Mexico. You have a border with Mexico. When it comes to establishing a hierarchy of with whom we must work to establish the best economic, social, military, social, cultural, trade, commercial, defense, security relations with, for Canada it is with the United States, and for the United States it is with Canada. Because of several factors, two main ones are social, cultural, historical realities, right? Although my brothers and sisters, the king is absent. We should have been Canada Republic on the 1st of January 2000. We should have been a republic. The king is absent. You know that Uncle Connie pledged allegiance, as all the prime ministers before him, Justin Trudeau included, Stephen Harper, Mulroney, his father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau in the 70s. You know, in 2025, Connie took power about more than 4 months ago. More than 4 months ago, he took office after the elections in Canada. Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs, not to the Constitution and people of Canada. That's why I say it's time for the Republic. The King is absent. It's time for the Republic. Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. 2025 Canada. Can you imagine? That gotta go. It's time for the Republic, and my way to fuse Canada and United States best, in parallel to being a Democratic Republican 50-50, Granddaddy Trump and Uncle Connie 50-50. But my universal revolutionary centrism, as it's called, is tied hand in hand with the North Americanism and my Trinity theories, indispensable. The CIT citizen integration theory, the DRT network fusion theory, and the DFT democratic fusion theory. That Trinity theory is to be established via LOVE, because if somebody not making love today, Canada coast to coast and in the USA and the free world NATO, what are we fighting to save Armageddon for? We gotta avert Armageddon. Paradoxically, even worldwide by the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, the DRT network fusion theory has to be implemented. Myself, as an aspect, I guess neurodivergent is mostly with solutions that I focus on and have been focused on. Sure, I don't have many friends. I lost many friends. I made a lot of friends, actually, even in the LGBT community. Is more difficult, but we have to build bridges. That's why don't waste my time. I won't waste yours. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. And then, or pledge your allegiance, thou art family. See the dream for world peace. But first, we gotta work in the North American Collective, as I'm calling all on December 24th, 25th for the summit banquet, and thereafter in April and March 20th, April 8th, 9th, 10th, June, July thereafter, but to march on the mountain on the summit, Trump, Carney, Dragon, and the leaders of the free world and NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization member states on the 24th and 25th of December. A few weeks, few months, November, December is coming. A little bit more than 66 days. Exactly 66 days from today. Exactly 66 days from today. Gotta double check, because we're the 20th and has 31 days, right? No, December 24th, 25th. So back to this reality of the politics of the statement that we must work to establish the best, most cordial relations with each other, my brothers and sisters in the USA. And because of our geography, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, we have two oceans. That is the uniqueness of Canada. Other countries, they have borders with many other nation states within themselves, right? With four surrounded, other countries are surrounded by four states, four different nation states and countries. Most. 5 or more. Russia has 44, right? Because it's so big, so wide. It has China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Poland, Moldova, all, right? Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan. Well, these are all part of the ex-USSR. Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, right? So we must, you gotta say yes to that. It's a constant, just like the pi symbol represents the numerical constant of 3.14, which is the relation between the diameter and the circumference of a circle. As for Canada, when it comes to who we have to place as number one priority to work to establish the best economic, social, financial, military, social, cultural, defense, security relations with, it is the United States. The United States, although you have a border with Mexico, it is still with us that you have to work to establish those relations with. There was recently in the news that there was 1,000, to hire 1,000 new border security officers. That's wasteful. The border has to go. We don't need the border. We need to implement my theories, protocols, universal revolutionary centrism, fuse the RCMP and the FBI into the Imperial Security Service and Defense Police Force, the Imperial Security Service and Police Force, to implement my theories and protocols such as the Total Dragon 911 North American 911 Dragon protocols, the 911 Dragon North American Dragon protocols, which are for total security, service, and defense to bring policing to the 21st century. Because we can't, I understand peace through strength. I understand it. Because paradoxically, I'm a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who foresaw that humanity is gonna again go towards a world war, a catastrophical World War III, a potential World War III, an international conflagration back in 2019. That's what I'm marking, celebrating 6 years of that prediction now, of the problems we live in. And my prediction is unfolding now, has been unfolding at least since Russia invaded Ukraine. Furthermore, since Hamas attacked by surprise Israel, and what a response, what a retribution and by Israel. Got the message. Potentially another conflict on the horizon is China, Taiwan. Again, I go back to one of my main premises, what it was, that due to the unresolved conflicts, ideological, cultural, economic, financial, all these different layers, dynamics, and realities, and potential motives, reasons for conflict, which were not resolved in the 20th century, geographical as well, right? Geographical as well, that they will restart. Russia Ukraine is an unresolved conflict. From the 20th century. Is it partly sectarian in nature? Sectarian, right? In my empire, my kingdom is non-sectarian. And here in North America, as you can see the flag of Quebec, Canada, I have that flag is always on me. You can't tell me nothing about that. Rock and roll. But nonetheless, we made what I call the great linguistic compromise. And I have to also do it because I do it myself. I create rock and roll songs every day, French, like Celine Dion bilingual. Because you're in the empire of the 63 when we're going to fuse Canada and the United States, and it's not one state, providentially. It's 10 provinces and 3 territories, which is going to make for 13 states for the Republic, as we're going to fuse 63 perpetually. And here, Quebec, the French state. We made the great linguistic compromise of the French language. Even Trudeau last year invested, I have to double check the numbers, but on a long term, more expansive for a few years, about 300 million for the French language from the federal. Although we have a more federal system, it's a more confederation. Confederation and federation, one is more loosely decentralized and one is more centralized, right? A federation has more central power and authority, a federation, while confederation is more decentralized, right? So those dynamics, the Dominion of Canada, which the king is absent, it's time for the Republican. We have to set up the binational salvation front. I think by November, we're going to have to start problems with the shutdown in the USA government. Shutdown. And we're hard hit. We're vulnerable. Even myself, I gotta give thanks again to my anonymous friend for gifting me those 2 books on autism. They have several chapters of Asperger's, which they merged in 2013, 2014. Asperger's and HFA, which I have this neurological mental divergent condition. They're one and the same, right? High functioning autism and Asperger's are one and the same. So categorically, I have to also thank for that book, which was a library loan 4 times. She loaned it for me 4 times. It's called, I recommend it to all, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, because I discovered and I now can work more on my neurological mental divergent condition when I have to build bridges with others, because I'm more about work. And this is part of it, to fully understand and grasp the dynamics, and that I have also my own vulnerabilities as a neurodivergent, as somebody who lives with Asperger's. And that book, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, has also made, because Aspie sometimes we're vulnerable to abuse, to misunderstanding, to things of that nature in categorical relations of the day-to-day and interactions with all aspects of society and other individual sovereign citizens, right? As part of the microcosm as an individual sovereign citizen, and the macrocosm, which incorporates both the public and the private sphere, without being too intellectual and academic about it. The public and the private sphere are interacting at different levels, whether economical, financial transactions, or work transactions, or social cultural transactions, or sports transactions, or volunteering, and all the things which we do as a civilizational complex here as a North American, because I'm speaking first and foremost as a North American. As a Canadian American, although I'm a mystic, I believe in reincarnations, many past lives, many incarnations. I was the priestess Pythia, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus in a past life. I was the priestess Pythia to an oracle in Delphi, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus. I was the priestess Pythia, who orated the great Retria to Lycurgus in a past life. So, now, being that this reality, which marks, for me, marking 6 years now with this first video, I guess, or the series, marking, celebrating with coffee, and maybe next time tea, or vice versa, milk, maybe, whatever. Marking 6 years since I predicted what's happening now across the world and has been happening during COVID and for the past 3.5 years. The international conflagration. On the horizon, maybe even now after I stop this video, maybe the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, ROC, and the People's Republic of China, mainland China, maybe mainland China, People's Republic of China, the PRC founded by Mao Zedong in 1949, October, and now they're having their 4-day meeting, which they set up their 5-year plans. And if you want to discuss China with me, or have commission work on specifically with Canadian-Chinese relations, which now we have the trade war, right? Trade war. Then you have to have a little bit of understanding and a little bit of knowledge and have read or be acquainted with the governance of China, which are at least the first 4 volumes, because now is the 5th one on the way. Since were published, since it started in 2012, and they're Xi Jinping's thought, and of course is Chinese socialism with Chinese characteristics, and generally to be resolved and resumed, because it's a lot of philosophy, a lot of ideology, and they still make reference to Karl Marx, still reference Karl Marx, who wrote Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto, is along with Karl Marx and Lenin and Stalin, and less Stalin, but Karl Marx is mentioned in the writing of China. Is in high regards by them, because she's the father of socialism, communism, right? Marxism. So China is building socialism with Chinese characteristics. So it's Marxist, communist, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. Mao Zedong, from Mao Zedong, who Mao took socialist communist from Karl Marx and led the Communist Party of China, right? But he still mentioned Karl Marx. Interestingly enough, right? Because Karl Marx was not Chinese, was German. But of course, communism was always about world proletariat revolution. I'm not going to divulge into socialist communist ideology, but it's definitely, if you take a look at Russia, Ukraine, because they were under a banner of socialist communism, right? USSR, they were Eastern Bloc. That was one of the Putin's motives, said the expansion of NATO into former Eastern Bloc countries, which several were part of Warsaw. The Warsaw Pact was the counterpoise and counter party, what we used to be called during the Cold War, the Iron Curtain, right? East and West Berlin. Berlin was divided for many, many decades. East and West, and you have East and West Germany, the socialist communist East Germany. East Germany as a nation state, independent nation state from West Germany, was separated, split in two. It was socialist communist, the Stasis, and many countries of the Warsaw Pact, which was the opposing force to NATO, right? Warsaw Pact was a military security defense alliance which comprised countries which now have joined NATO, such as Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, Poland, right? These countries, 4 countries, were part of the Warsaw Pact, paradoxically. So they expanded. The NATO expansion was one of the important factors of Russia invading Ukraine. Because he said Ukraine categorically must not join NATO. Right? That was in Putin's speeches. As I analyzed his discourses and speeches, and of course analyzed from the left, from the right, from the center, but as a North American nonetheless. Because as much as I know the governance of China and the ideology and the philosophies espousing the governance of China, which is you can read it, or it's open available online, or you can listen to the audiobooks. But as much as I know, I'm still a North American, so I'm gonna have a certain less understanding fully, with certain biases, perhaps, maybe surely so, than somebody who is in China, right? Who's Chinese, who's in China. But Taiwan, the ROC, because Taiwan, official name of Taiwan is the ROC, Republic of China. So the ROC, Republic of China, that's an unresolved conflict from the 20th century. Dates from the Chinese Civil War, the Cold War. The Kuomintang took power in Taiwan, which is the island, ROC, for decades and decades and decades and decades. They ruled the island. Taiwan, officially, Taiwan is known as the ROC, Republic of China. So both have Zongo. Zongo is the name of China in Chinese. And they still have that name. Republic of China is Taiwan, while the People's Republic of China is mainland China. And for many decades, it was ruled under martial law. Martial law. They only had their elections in the 90s. So it was a kind of one-party state, still, but more nationalistic. It dates back to the Chinese Civil War and Mao Zedong driving the Kuomintang out of mainland China, and they went and they fled to Taiwan. So China, People's Republic of China, always sees Taiwan as a rogue state, right? As a rogue, not state, but province, which must be, they have not given up the reunification, their official policy and ideologies. Taiwan must reunification with the mainland. Taiwan must, that is their official position, right? Xi Jinping and Communist Party of China, that Taiwan must reunification with mainland China. That is another potential big conflict on the horizon. And you wonder why China also developed in the past so many nuclear warheads. They almost doubled their nuclear capacities in just the past 5 years during COVID. That's quite alarming. And supposedly they're building this 11 times bigger than the Pentagon, massive military centers. We gotta counterpoise the Pentagon, and here in Hawk Island, Montreal, we have to build a mass citizen integrated military police security complex for the 63 as we're gonna fuse together and implement my DRT theory, and implement, of course, the Northern Scorpio Operation Northern Scorpion, based on my total mobile defense theory, which I cannot discuss overly much. And the total mobile defense theory I don't discuss much because it's binational security matters, and can only discuss it with high-ranking members of the security apparatus for David McGinty and Secret Service CSIS and Pete Hegseth, and Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard, and all members of the security apparatus of Canada, United States, as my way to fuse Canada, United States best in the Imperial Democratic Republican complex, with my vision for a mass public-private partnership, and by implementing the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, Debt Refusion Theory, for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, also all the imperial dollar, and of course, going back to my prediction of 2019 was that it's occurring in a parallel line to what I have predicted. So these dynamics which we have now, if you look at the four main conflicts or open conflicts, such as Russia, Ukraine, open arms and open warfare, Israel, Hamas. Hamas was founded in the 80s, in 1987. It took them 20 years to take power over Gaza. Pakistan, India, and potentially China and Taiwan. Pakistan and India is also a Cold War period era conflict, which was not is not fully resolved due to the Kashmir region and Kashmir region. They have not fully. They just had a few exchanges, military. They fought a bit a few months ago. They had military exchanges, right? But my theories protocols are mainly for security service and defense in the insurance of liberty. And now there's tough economic times, and I'm going to discuss a bit the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, because it's important for me to do so. This is, of course, marking 6 years since I predicted what's happening now. I have the proof. October 17, 2019, I posted the first video, and also I mark and celebrate 6 years since I also created a workout training program system, of which I performed more than 372 sessions right in this room office in Tempo and outside as well. Officially titled the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the 300 workout, aka the Dragon Army workout. A simple, effective workout training program system which is meant to increase general overall fitness, is not meant for aesthetics and developing muscle aesthetics and looking good in the mirror, but it's made for increasing general overall fitness. You got to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, push-ups and squats, that trinity of exercising. Push-ups, hawks, squats, 100 for each. You can do 13 reps max per set, 3 minimum, anywhere in between. And one is allocating 93 minutes, is allocated total time. 93 minutes officially, 44 seconds and 9/11ths of a second. 9/11 of a second is more symbolic for the 9/11 attacks and the fact that only NATO collective defense article was only invoked one in its history, Article 5. 9/11, of course, still reverberates today. And you got one is allocated 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11th of a second. So more than 11, more than an hour and a half. I average about an hour to perform it myself. I perform done completely successfully more than 372 sessions. And once you start the countdown, you cannot pause. You got to march, run, or walk fast pace. And between each set rep, whether you do squats, push-ups, and hawks, you can do them in whatever order you want until you get to 100. In between sets, whether you do 13 or 3, 13 max, 3 minimum, those two numbers go together, 13 and 3, you can do between 6, 7, or 8. And you cannot pause. You gotta march, jog, or run a minimum of 31 seconds in between. So once you start the countdown, you gotta keep it in motion. In other words, you cannot pause. You gotta keep it in motion. So it incorporates the cardio in it. You can check my videos. I discuss it fully. And October 17th, I started posting my first video in that long series, which lasted years, and it's ongoing. I guess we're gonna have to do this videos and wrap it and do some throwback. Try to do it again and do it again within the rules. I did complete it successfully. More than 372 sessions of my own creative workout training program system right here. Financially stressed, and I lost between 80 and 93 pounds since I got out of being depressed by crossing Canada coast to coast. That event in my life, I still have the tickets. In August 2017, with my anonymous friend, we took the bus and we went to Vancouver, BC, and auctioning those tickets for $1 million. I'm gonna give her half of that, 50%. And in September 2017 of that same summer year, we took the train from Montreal to Halifax. It was 25 hours and 44 minutes, one whole day, more than a day, 25 hours and 44 minutes exactly. I have the tickets for that. I kept them. It was somewhere here. I'm gonna do a big cleaning before Halloween and the month of Scorpio beginning soon in 4 days. It's Scorpio season, so gotta get that rock and roll, and gotta go retrieve my archives. Got 4 things to do by or on October 31st. Big cleaning and write some emails, write some letters to leaders of NATO, public-private partnership, and work to go on the meeting for the mountain on the summit on the 24th and the 25th of December to establish the Democratic Republican Empire for the 63. Always let it rise and let it be, and always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. And we gotta get a little bit of those dynamics as we are today, and we gotta be grateful, thankful. Have some food, and I got some brisket. Thank you for the donation for the brisket, and I got this cup of coffee, and it's gonna be the last one. And I got some milk. Thank you, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, farmers, always for the electricians. And gotta salute those nurses across North America who have 1 more hour to go. They're already on the shift working for 11 hours and finishing after 12, big long shift. And Always calling on the millionaires, billionaires to give some charity. And please, NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League. My Niners won yesterday. My Niners won. Go Niners, go. Please, NFL, National Football League, National Hockey League, NHL, MLB, Major League Baseball, and NBA, National Basketball Association, please reduce the cost of the tickets by 44.9%, and give some tickets to the public workers, those who pick up the garbage. Today, Monday, I got in the morning that recycling was picked up, so there are also athletes going on those big trucks filling up those garbages and keeping our streets clean, and sanitation workers who pick up the garbage. Sanitation workers picking up the garbage, and Thursday they're gonna pick up the compost. We got to do our part in the recycling ourselves as individuals, so something which has to be done as individuals. If we don't do it as individuals, then we got to do the individual and the collective. It's always a public-private partnership. And now I'm going to discuss the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action. And today I don't think I will discuss the DRT, but maybe we're going to discuss the DRT as well. Yeah, let's do that. Discuss both and rock and roll with us. So what is the DMAA? The Direct Military Assistance and Actions. It's super important to pay a full attention to the DMAA, as I will discuss it now. So the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance and Action, what is it? It is pertinent. It is not just a theory. It is a theoretical protocol, a work tool, a frame of reference for NATO member countries, where we have, of course, to implement, and of course we have to establish and incorporate the DMAA. It's for NATO member countries. It stands for Direct Military Assistance and Action, or Action or Assistance. D for Direct, M for Military, Assistance or Action, and they can be reversed, Action or Assistance. And in parentheses, there's a C. C stands for Consequence, because they are consequence to NATO member countries assisting or taking action, military action directly, or assisting in a military manner. Their consequences. Now, before I proceed into the DMA, I just want to say, of course, that I predicted in 2019 October, starting October 17th until today, I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. However, what I did not predict was the re-election of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was president then. I did not predict the re-election of Donald Trump, and I did not predict, and this gives me goosebumps every time I discuss it, that Canada, we're going to be at such a low point in our relations with the United States. Because the tariffs on Canadian goods, even last week, there were additional tariffs added. And again, with whom do we have to work to have the best relationship with? The United States. 75%, three quarters of our trade goes to the United States. Other countries such as Europe and England and Britain, Germany, they're not doing so well. They will not be able to import from us that much. Maybe 5, 10, 15% we're going to take off of that 75%, drop it to 60, 65%, maybe 60. But that's just the reality. Right? So, I did not predict the re-election of Donald Trump. I would have voted for Biden myself, Kamala Biden. Although I'm a Democratic Republican, I'm a third party, transcending and incorporating from both these. It's a centrist party which we're going to lay the foundations together for the Binational Salvation Front, as we're going to go to the mountain December 24th and 25th. Right? The Binational Salvation Front. The Binational Salvation Front, the Binational Salvation Front, which we're going to have to incorporate. The Democratic Imperial Republican Party, aka the NACWP, the North American Collective Workers' Party, the NACP, because that's what we are, aka the Phoenix People's Party. It's going to have a rebirth for world peace, right, in a non-sectarian manner. So, now we're going to discuss the realities that I did not predict Donald Trump's re-election, and I did not predict that we're going to have such a low relations with the United States, to the point that since August 1st, by the official White House statement, and this gives me goosebumps, you know that Canada were designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. The motives given there for the reason of increasing tariffs on Canada are multi or several. One of the motives reasons is given that there was a lack of coordination. Now, the word coordination counterpoise with cooperation. When you coordinate, it implies action. When you cooperate, cooperation can be exchanging, trading information, wisdom, and knowledge. When you coordinate, it includes cooperation on certain elements. Coordination is more action based, taking joint action, right? So the lack of coordination between U.S. law enforcement and domestic law enforcement is relates to fentanyl and human trafficking. The RCMP is the equivalent of the FBI here, so that's why we're gonna have to fuse together into the Imperial Democratic Republican Police Force for total security service and defense based on my new 911 Dragon Total North American Security Complex protocols. And the relationship of the word cooperation coordination again implies action. So it's stated there in black and white by the Trump administration and signed by Trump that this lack of coordination, which implies cooperation between law enforcement, Canadian law enforcement and U.S. law enforcement, as it's written in black and white, that where Canada now constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people, also due to the fact that the fentanyl amount, which crossed from compared from 2024 to this year 2025, it tripled. And last year, what happened last year, October 25th of last year, and I gotta say, good job to the RCMP, dismantled just last year the biggest ever drug super lab in Canadian history. And the RCMP, if you read back to about 2015, they warned us there's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups establishing themselves in Canada. There's a growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups establishing themselves in Canada. If you check back, and even in 2021 during COVID, they warned us. They sounded the alarm. And this super lab was the biggest ever drug super lab in Canadian history. They seized arms, munitions, and weapons and money, and about 95 million doses of fentanyl, which could have potentially killed the population of Canada twice over. Can you imagine? More and more, I'm designating this fentanyl as a bioweapon instead of a drug because it doesn't make sense. Some things doesn't add up because if you think about the narco traffickers and the drug traffickers that want to make money, right? The fact that this fentanyl is so deadly and lethal, there must be some temperance with it, that it's actually converted from a drug into a bioweapon. And we're going to link it to the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action, because it has consequences. And one of the consequences could be that powerful nation states, in coordination or individually by their secret police, can finance and support and help these transnational criminal syndicate organized groups internally in NATO member countries, of which we are 32 member countries, nation states, countries. We're 32 now because Sweden was the 32nd to join last year. So last year, on the 25th of October of last year, 2024, is going to be a year in 5 days. The RCMP in Surrey, BC, dismantled the biggest ever drug super lab. And in black and white, the motive is given. One of the other motives and reasons why Trump administration decided to increase tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel starting August 1st, and even last week they increased some more tariffs, is the growing reality of the domestic production of fentanyl in Canada due to the super labs. And super labs is mentioned there in black and white, which can produce more than between 44 and 66 pounds. I believe it's monthly or bi-weekly, gotta check exactly, but super labs in Canada producing fentanyl producing super labs in Canada is mentioned as one of the motives there, and among others. So being designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat by the United States is something which I did not predict, and is certainly an alarming national security matter which we must accord the most importance. Regardless of whether we would have voted for Trump, I believe the American people made a mistake in this case. to re-elect Trump, and I believe Granddaddy Trump also made some mistakes in terms of geopolitics. Don't know who's advising you, Granddaddy Trump, but in terms of geopolitics, it's bad advisors. They don't know geopolitics. They might know economics. They might know finance. They might know the Federal Reserve. You might know real estate, Mar-a-Lago, and yards, and you might know square meters and areas and construction and beams of steel and 44 floors and headquarters of different corporations and institutions, and how much real estate is in New York compared to Florida and across the 50 states. But when it comes to geopolitics, no, zero. Maybe not zero, but you suck. You suck at geopolitics, Granddaddy Trump, in many ways. In certain things, I understand the tariffs as a strategy, peace through strength. I understand it in these tough geopolitical times, which I predicted myself that they were coming back in 2019. But I cannot fully support peace through strength because there has to be some love and understanding. If you don't have some love and understanding with me, my Asperger's condition and HFA, the only real thing that's required is an understanding, more understanding than anything else. So we have to build those bridges. And paradoxically, my theories, protocols are gold. They're not just worth capital and trillions, but they can actually potentially save us from Armageddon. That's why they require mass public-private partnership and calling on my astrological brother Bill Gates and all institutions and organizations that are dealing with finance. So now we're going to go to the DMAA and discuss then the DRT, debt refusion theory. So the DMAA is related, perhaps in many ways, to this transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, perhaps which one that the RCMP dismantled, the biggest ever drug super lab just last year on the 25th of October 2024. It's going to be a year soon. And good job again to the RCMP, because imagine so much, just that one drug super lab could have potentially killed the population of Canada twice over. Imagine how many children they could have killed with that fentanyl. Direct military assistance and action is not just a theory, it's a protocol, a working reference for NATO. NATO's motto is Animus in Consuelo Liber, that's Latin. The motto of Canada is in Latin, the motto of Montreal is Latin, the motto of the United States is Latin. Animus in Consuelo Liber stands for a mind unfettered in deliberation. A mind unfettered in deliberation. So this mind unfettered in deliberation, it has to be applied to my DMAA theory, which stands for direct military assistance and action, and the C, because there's potential consequences of taking action and assistance. For example, the most recent one is NATO member countries supporting Ukraine. Now again, it has nothing to do with humanitarian aid, giving shelter, food, sanitation pads, tampons, shampoo, antibacterial germ-killing lotions, but strictly military. So for example, Canada provided munitions, armaments, weapons, helmets, grenades, anti-tank weaponry, and armored vehicles. That's military assistance, not action. Action by NATO countries, for example, intervention in Libya, bombardment. Belgrade, 1999. Serbia, Belgrade. Other interventions against ISIL since 2014. And of course, other interventions, which are action. So assistance is counterpoised to the assistance. So this assistance is when NATO member countries take assisting countries which are not part of NATO. And these conflicts have to be between non-NATO member countries. Thus, we take a position, an adversarial position. It creates the fact that by our direct military assistance can harm and destroy and kill the adversarial military soldiers and forces. That creates the consequence of that nation state maybe doing covert operations by secret police or by financing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups to flood the streets with fentanyl as a bioweapon, potentially, as a consequence. Was that transnational criminal syndicate organized group perhaps working with secret police, secret services, and members of the government of China, members of the government of Russia, members of the government of India, members of another government hostile to NATO because of our direct military assistance and action. So that's why it's not just a theory, it's a protocol for whether we take action or assist future wars in the future. DMAA, direct military assistance and action. Now we're going to discuss the DRT. It's going to take hours and hours to lecture just on the DMAA. I just introduced it briefly so you can meditate and ponder the DMAA, and there's more to it. It's not just a theory, it's a frame of reference. It requires lots of deliberation and lots of thinking and speculation and thinking in terms of wisdom, understanding and knowledge of geopolitics and how it relates to NATO's action or assistance and the potential consequences thereof. DRT, direct debt refusion theory. My DRT theory is the only solution, or something which resembles my DRT theory is the solution, because we have for both Canada and the United States. That's why it must be implemented by nationally. We have four main problems which are affecting the majority of the population, the citizens, myself included. Financial matters. So one is the growing cost of living. The prices of goods are increasing every day. They're still continuing to increase. The stagnation of the salaries, rents are increasing. Even my rent went up, but I'm not going to say exactly by how much, although in my case it's reasonable. I cannot complain. It's between $6 and $10 Canadian. So the other is the growing credit card debt. So because of these four main problems, we have to implement the DRT ASAP. So the DRT includes monetary integration theory, which was the financial theory, which was integrated in the European Union. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. My debt is $10,000. I don't have credit cards. I have a debt to the RBC Royal Bank of Canada. So we're going to take all the public-private debt, add it all together. We're going to of Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it with all the public-private debt of the USA and all the other money in circulation. We're going to create this new imperial central bank. We're going to get rid of the border and create a new currency, the imperial dollar, aka the UE, because that's what dollars and shekels and yuans and yens and euros are. Exchange. Money is, whether we call them dollar or euros or yuan or shekels, it's a unit of exchange. So we're going to create the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. We're going to get rid of the border, mass finance fitness, mass finance the rebuilding of the infrastructure, the aqueducts, build those 44 mass underground cities, tunnels, and get the Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act going. If you haven't been convicted of more than 44 criminal convictions, then you can get to build those 44 tunnels for the children to survive a nuclear war here in the empire of the fusing Canada, United States into the 63. And of course, if you have been convicted by more than 44 convictions, criminal convictions in the past 11 years, instead of the Amnesty Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act, we're going to do the Imperial Dracula Protocol, and we're going to get that defense coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to mass finance tourism every 4 seasons: spring, winter, summer, autumn, and the beginning equinox, solstice. Every citizen who is 16 years of age, we're going to finance 4 days, 4 times a year, 4 times 4 nights, evenings, and nights, including in hotels, motels, and food. And we're going to finance tourism and travel. You can accumulate or take 4 times a year, or accumulate 8. Take 8 days twice a year, or 16, or accumulate. Is going to apply to me too. We're going to do great things by the DRT, all the public-private debt. We're going to refuse it, and all that money is going to be the initial money supply for this new central bank. We're going to create the UE, and of course, we're going to get rid of the border. We're going to do a great census of the population, see who's been living in Canada, United States for the past 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, and do a great amnesty, do a great biological, biometric, new ID, new passport, get rid of the border, fuse the RCMP and the FBI. FBI and RCMP are going to be fused. We're going to create this new transnational NATO member. Of course, we can expand it to NATO member countries, the DRT, and the creation of the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, the universal exchange unit as a new currency. That's what we're going to have to do together, of course, in the complementary, with all the complementary theories. The DRT, debt refusion theory, I guess it's one of the chief ones. So the debt refusion theory, we're going to take all the public-private debt, convert it to US dollars, add it with the US dollar. That money is going to be the initial money supply. We're going to standardize, set an interest rate level of 10%. We're not going to be able to have more than 10% afterwards. And we're going to be required a mass public-private partnership. All the BlackRock and RBC, Blackstone, BlackRock are 2 financial institutions which split after 1989, but they still work together. And it's going to take my Royal Bank of Canada, all the 5 major banks of Canada, and the public and the private financial institutions is a mass public-private partnership. And my brother, citizen Scorpio Bill Gates, for fintech. Fintech is also going to be mass part of it, because we're going to put the digital with the fingerprints and the eye and the fingerprints. We're going to have a mass rebuilding of the infrastructure collective of NORAD and NATO. We're going to swipe clean and see. We're going to secure our internal apparatus and the 5G networks, 4G networks, 5G networks, and we're going to create the imperial citizen cell phones, which are going to be tied in and with all security services, all police forces, all the Dragon Army. We're going to create the Dragon Army, aka Imperial SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, SSD, Security Service and Defense only across NATO, and for Insurance of Liberty, SSDL, Security Service and Defense and Insurance of Liberty. For Security Service and Defense, the Imperial Dragon Army, aka the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Defense Legion, the Imperial Integrated Defense Legion as the official name. We're going to mobilize 1% of the citizen and counterbalance. We're going to create the Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Dance League. Imperial Dance League. Imperial Integrated Dance League for environmental education and action. We're going to mass finance fitness and tourism. The 4 times a year, everybody, all new citizens, and we're going to have Novus Civis, that's Latin for new citizens of the empire, coming of our empire, let it rise and let it be. Everybody who's 16 and over, you're going to be financed 4 days a year, 4 times 4, that's 16. You're going to be financed to go anywhere across the 63, from Quebec to California, from California to Yukon, from Yukon to Montana, from South and North Dakota, from Carolina. We're going to get rid of the border. We're going to fuse the institution, create 2 complementary covenant as the institutions. We're going to, of course, give some amnesty, do a census, a great census, even across NATO, but Canada, United States, from a North American centric perspective, and see if Mexico, if they will, to join us. Other countries, of course, in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, and the nation states. Haiti have developed about 7 years ago. I started writing a protocol for the incorporation in the North American collective civilization complex of Haiti, to transform it into a total TT complex, tourist and travel and fitness region, a economic zone, a special economic zone to public-private partnership based to be for tourism and tourist travel and fitness, and art. TTA was called the protocols, and I started writing them a few years ago. I wrote a lot of geopolitical philosophy, such as most of my work kind of dates. Most of my work is post me traversing, coming out of my depression and being suicidal when I traversed Canada coast to coast in 2017. So I have work on USB keys and documents, but most is dictated orally, as I do this dictations orally now. Although in a more general manner, but from the general manner you can infer, and you have to pledge your allegiance. Legions are friends with benefits. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. And it's the Dragon Army, the Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial Integrated Dancing, of course, for the conversion, of course, conversations which we have, of course, which got to be transposed into action. Because implementing my debt fusion theory and the CIT citizen integration theory and the DFT democratic fusion theory is going to require some action, as we're going to fuse Canada and United States into the imperial complex by the DRT and the creation of the UE, Universal Exchange, Unit. We're also going to mass rebuild the infrastructure, the bridges, the potholes, the bridges, the highways, mass infrastructure work. Via the DRT, we're going to be able to mass rebuild our infrastructure here in Hydro-Quebec plants. We're going to build some more. Our electricity goes to about 5, or I believe six states, all the way to Manhattan Island. Gotta give a shout out, because this is clean, clean energy that I'm doing this video above my head. Clean energy, it comes from water. Gotta get that water and that fire, rock and roll with that. For the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, plumbers, electricians, truckers on the road, those nurses finishing their 12-hour shift now across North America. We're gonna mass finance healthcare, mass finance that tourism. Every citizen who's gonna be 16 and over, credit from the 4 ministries which we're gonna create. The 4 times a year, every equinox and spring, equinox and solstice, summer, autumn, winter, 4 days, 4 nights, that is, nights, where we're gonna finance the food, the housing and lodging and transportation by planes, airplanes. It's gonna be a mass public-private partnership, by trains and by highways where citizens can visit. It's going to be a mass rejuvenation and integration of the empire for the youth, for the elderly, for all alike. this mass imperial tourism to see what they're fighting for, what they're living for. All the great cities, the small cities, all the 63 to 50 states and the 13 new states which we're going to fuse. Not an X, not an X. We're going to have this new constitution under the stars on earth, and it's going to be God bless and God is GODDSS kiss our empire. Pledge allegiance to our family. The debt refusion theory is the solution. Creation of the UE. A new biometrics and mass public-private partnership. We're going to have to do a great census. Mobilize the citizens to do a great census. And we're going to work to set up the binational salvation front to implement my theories and finance food security and healthcare, and encourage volunteering to work to build those 44 towns, to work to rehabilitate the highways, the bridges, for fitness, for brains and pleasure and fitness and rehabilitation and insurance of liberty and SSD and some joy. Pledge allegiance.